it's Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is the Expecting Ariels podcast, now with the Digit Network. How's it going, guys? Hope you're having an amazing week. Before we get started, lots going on with Wrap Your Head Around Silks always. Every Monday and Thursday, we hit the mat for Roll It Out, foam rollers and balls. We take care of our aerial muscles. It's a game changer for me. A lot less injury, a lot less pain in my life being in the air, 5 days a week. Also have beginner to intermediate course, especially for those people who pop in and out of class and you can't really remember the wraps, remember the foundational stuff. It's a lifetime access for that. And digital videos, very clean and specific, a lot of progressions, a lot of cues. And then also we have aerial rehab, meant to be the bridge between PT and your favorite aerial class, postpartum, post-injury, post-surgery. Would love to have you there. All right, today we have Erica Ziel. She's the creator and owner of Knocked Up Fitness. She has a brick and mortar studio in Iowa. And she comes in to talk to us about prenatal and postpartum exercise, weight training, running, Pilates, how to gently get that core activated and do our workouts in a healthy way. All right, guys, let's get started. Erica, you're like right up the alley of this podcast. I don't know if there is a more niche podcast that one could find than the one that I have.
I love it. I know. Your aerialist work looks so fun.
Yeah, so this population, women all over the world, anywhere from just a hobbyist where they do this for fun to professional Cirque du Soleil,
Wow.
performers.
Yeah.
All ages, at every stage, wanting a kid, getting pregnant, the process of getting pregnant, being pregnant, postpartum, 10 years postpartum. So all of that, and I love that you kind of touch on a lot of that stuff. So Erica, if you would introduce yourself to the audience, talk about Knocked Up Fitness, and we'd love to hear a little about you, and then I'm going to start pounding you some questions.
Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you, Carrie, for inviting me on your podcast. So I'm Erica Ziel. I have been in the movement wellness space for over 20 years now. And way back before I even had kiddos, my oldest is 17 now, I was always fascinated by prenatal fitness. And I just thought it was so cool that really we were overlooking what the pregnant body is really capable of, what pregnant women, pregnant moms were capable of. And so my background is exercise science, and then I discovered Pilates, fortunately, really early on, actually when I was still in college, and just fell in love with it. And it's really kind of been this evolution of like one thing after the other. Like Pilates is what really helped me so much personally with my own body. And then having worked with so many pregnant women, having had 3 kiddos myself, and really also discovering so much more years ago about fascia, about pelvic floor, deep core function, really realizing that so many people, women, moms, were dealing with pain and dysfunction that I was really seeing they didn't have to. There's things we could do to prevent. There are things that we could do to work to help them feel so much better. And as moms, when we feel better physically, we feel better emotionally, and we can help take care of our kids so much better. And when I was pregnant with my 3rd, I ended up actually filming my first prenatal workout DVD because I was like, no one's teaching core training out there the way we should be teaching core training. And that was kind of my first step into really creating my Knocked Up Fitness brand and really helping to educate expecting moms, and then into like postpartum more about deep core training and fascia and breathing and so many things that can help us prevent and help get rid of aches and pains, pelvic floor dysfunction, and all of that. And it's just slowly evolved. I opened my Core Athletica Pilates studio this year, which has been a big dream of mine to always have that in-person training. I've always worked with clients in person, but to really have my own spot now. And so, I just kind of do a lot of different things, from online, instructor training in the studio. And I'm a mom of 3 kids we've got preteen to teenagers. So it's crazy around here, but good crazy.
How old were you when you had your 17-year-old?
23.
Okay, I was like, you're kind of not looking like you could have a 17-year-old, but
Oh, that's so sweet of you,
we're
Carrie.
just gonna go for it. I'm always impressed when the white girls just age very well. Everybody knows that I say this all the time. I know. My friends are like, Carrie, you're the only one who can get away with this. I'm like, I can't get away with a lot of things, so this is what I try.
I love
Okay,
it.
so Erica, this population, there's a lot of anxiety slash interest in retaining, maintaining throughout the pregnancy and after a healthy core, obviously. Our sport specific needs it's like pelvis and core is like the first thing that comes up in our mind. So if you could maybe guide our listeners in maybe some tips and tricks or just the concept of keeping that core healthy prenatal, and then we'll kind of go to postpartum after.
Perfect. Yeah, I love this question. It's so great. And I love this too, because I think the awareness piece of this is so important. Across the board, what I've seen in all my years of working with so many incredible women in person and through my online program, which we've had thousands to date go through. So we've had a lot of amazing conversations, is that most women, especially women in the childbirthing years, and especially those that are athletic, are too restricted in their pelvic floor, in their pelvis, and in their core. So when we become pregnant and we're told, like, do your Kegels, and I will still sometimes even see pregnant moms doing crunches on like an exercise ball, and it, ooh, like, makes me cringe, because all I think about is those types of things are really like abdominal exercises during pregnancy is actually a piece that can cause dysfunction for a lot of women. Now, I might say some things, and there might be that occasional mom out there that's like, I did my Kegels and they worked great for me, or I kept doing a lot of ab work when I was pregnant and that worked for me. And that might be the case for the like very, very, very few. I'm talking like across the board, only because we've helped so many women with dysfunction. So I look at this from a functional perspective, right? And because women during, in this age range tend to be really tight, I actually like to teach them how to learn to release and relax through their pelvis, their pelvic floor, their obliques. We tend to be really grippy in our obliques, especially as pregnancy progresses. So what happens is, because of the shifting of our postural shifts, and now babies, getting bigger, going out farther, the obliques of our core start to really have to hang on tight when we're not training our core in a more correct manner. So I do a lot of teaching my pregnant moms how to release and relax through their pelvis, pelvic floor, through their obliques and their low back. We do a lot of really gentle ball work. I have a ball that I have that's really soft, and we do like stuff up against the wall, and we've really focused on the breath practice of helping her to get in and elongate through her spine, but get into the fascia really of inside of her body. So we're thinking about working the body from the inside out. And then as we're working on the strengthening side, because yes, we do need to strengthen I like to say our deep core, not just our abs. So we need to start really thinking about our entire core, ladies, from our base of our pelvis, which does include our pelvic floor, all the way up through our torso, underneath our shoulder blades. So which includes all of our organs, essentially, like all the fascia inside of our body wraps around our organs. And we are taught so much about, do those Kegels, strengthen that pelvic floor, right? Well, the pelvic floor is only a piece of your core. And if we are always thinking about our pelvic floor having to hold the weight of baby up, we end up with too much restriction in our pelvic floor, or it's restriction in part of the pelvic floor, weakness in other parts of the pelvic floor. So it really leads to imbalance. And instead, what moms to really start thinking about is the fascia that goes around all of our organs, right? Our heart, our intestines, our diaphragm. That fascia inside is actually suspending our organs versus our pelvic floor having to support everything from underneath. Is that making some sense, Carrie?
Yeah.
Like, we're starting to visualize. So it's really not just about our muscles, It's so much more about our fascial system and how everything is interconnected. And every movement you do when you're pregnant is a core exercise. So we should not be thinking about doing our ab exercise when we're pregnant. We should be starting to think about, how is our core lightly supported? That is the key word here. How is our core lightly supported when we're doing anything? When we're walking, when we're carrying another child, when we're doing our squats, when we're, doing whatever it is, we need to start thinking about this gentle connection from the pelvic floor all the way up through the top of the head, is what I like to say. It's this lengthening motion. And then when you are pregnant, I like the term of like gently hugging your baby, but we're not drawing our belly in, we're lifting from underneath the belly. And when we start to really feel that, we're getting into that transverse abdominis, which is, that muscle kind of wraps around our whole lower midsection, but it's also the fascia that wraps around there as well. And when we can start thinking about training our core in a manner that it's really initiated with our breath, then we do the movement, it really helps her to work on having a more balanced pelvic floor strength, and helps her to get out of back pain, helps her to feel so much stronger. And because she also gets feedback of baby inside of her belly, I'm like, this is the absolute best time, is during pregnancy, to really figure this out about your body. Learn more about your body, learn more about what's going on with your core function. It's very fascinating how it can really transform a woman's life and her body.
It's really interesting to me that you say the stuff about the too tight pelvic floor and creating and keeping too much tension, because separately, in so many of the interviews that I've done with these women, hypertonic pelvic floor, too tight, too tight, too tight. They're given the cues to do the Kegels. And that's a very old school thing. I am hearing less of that, right? There's starting to be a bit of a reversal on that. I tell the story all the time. I thought I had chronic UTIs before I was pregnant. Turns out I just had a too tight pelvic floor. And then I destroyed my gut with antibiotics, thinking that I was taking care of the UTI. And that is kind of a journey that I had to go through. And then, years later, I've kind of come around and have a more holistic sense of what's going on. But it's interesting to hear that corroborated.
Yeah, we're always teaching moms, and we teach, like, my whole thing is like, it's not about quote stretching more, because like we can talk about like prenatal yoga where it's like really like deep stretches, and I'm not necessarily a fan of that. We need to work on being like supported lightly through our core while we move. And it's really amazing as women start to learn these techniques. She has so much more mobility of her spine. Like, it's amazing. The women we work with, and we see like literally the day she delivers, she still has actual spinal articulation in her lower lumbar spine. And you don't usually see that because most women are so locked. Their body's like kind of hanging on for dear life, trying to support the added weight of baby. But when we can like shift the way we're thinking about moving and being gentler with our body, it really opens up a whole new world of possibility and helps with pelvic floor function.
Okay, I would love for you to talk a little bit about weightlifting while pregnant, and then running as well, because that is something that we don't get to a lot on this podcast, because we have a bunch of aerialists who are doing a bunch of pull-ups. But weight training, running are both great cross-training things to do. So if you could give us some wisdom on that, some guidance.
Yeah, of course. So the whole philosophy of that is, if you've been weight training before you were pregnant, really it comes down to, as long as your doctor approves you when you're pregnant to continue your physical activity, there's no complications, nothing's going on, then really we can kind of look at what you were doing prior to, and likely we need to pull you back a little bit because of the conversation I just had about too much restriction. So what we now need to shift to, and I will never tell a woman like, oh, you can't weightlift unless we're having some pelvic floor issues or we're having pain from it. Those are my two biggies. So if we're doing, weighted squats and you pee your pants a little bit every time, well, we need to kind of rethink that. That might mean we need to, decrease the weight a little bit. That might mean, before we go to lift our weights, we need to do some deep core warming up, some releasing and relaxing. I love to teach I call an arch and round movement, some pelvic tilt hip rolls, things that are like getting you into your body. So we're getting this expansion, fascial expansion, but also light connection. So our core is lightly on before we go lift weights. That might be the game changer. And really what it comes down to is, as long as you're not holding your breath. This is one thing I see, and I don't know in the aerialist community if we have as many breath holders as
Yes.
I will see, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So when I basically think about, when I teach pregnant moms how to breathe for core function, we have to take that into the weight training world. Because say, for example, we're doing a squat and we're holding our breath and we're bracing our core, which is how it's taught a lot of times. That is putting so much pressure downward on your pelvic floor, likely why you're dealing with some incontinence or pelvic floor pressure or low back pain. We have to shift that and think about this gentle. Remember how I kind of hug your baby? It's not intense. It's this very gentle pelvic floor, deep core lifting through your body, which is why so many times I just say, just decrease your weight. And then you can continue doing what you were doing. And side note, ladies, when you're pregnant, your collagen synthesis is through the roof, okay? Because you're creating a baby and most of our body is made of collagen. So you actually can do less. This has been my experience and a little bit of research I've seen on this, is that you can actually do less when you're pregnant and maintain or even potentially get stronger, depending on what your physical activity level was before you were pregnant. It's pretty fascinating. So again, weight training, I'm all for, as long as we are really listening to our body. So likely you got to decrease those weights. Don't get scared that decreasing what you're doing is ineffective. It's not. I have so many moms that they do the squat series that I teach, right up to the day that they deliver, but they're doing it without weights eventually because it helps them to keep their pelvis balanced. So we have to kind of start shifting why are we doing what we're doing, especially when we're pregnant. We need to shift a little bit instead of thinking I want to keep this body looking a certain way. We actually need to start to shift it and what are we doing and how is that helping me during this pregnancy to have a better feeling pregnancy, right? And also helping me prepare for birth, which also relates to how I feel postpartum. And I cannot tell you how many conversations we've had with women that did too much during pregnancy because they didn't have someone say, hey, it's a red flag if you're peeing your pants a little bit, lifting weights or running. I'll talk more about running in a second. That, actually, it's okay for you to do less because that actually can be more effective for you because it's what your body needs right now. I'm all for go move your body every day. Absolutely. But we have to, it's the whole workout smarter, not harder, especially when you're pregnant. And I see time and time again, women that just do deep core training and it sets them up for such amazing success. It's really phenomenal versus sometimes we stay too high in our training during pregnancy because we think we have to. It's too tight, too much restriction. And then that can set us up for just a harder birth. If we don't know how to relax through our pelvis, we are more likely to possibly have a C-section or a longer labor, right? I teach birth prep stuff to my mom so that they're aware of what's happening. What can we do to help prepare our body for an easier, birth, even if you're having a C-section. And we see this a lot of times with our moms that if they've had a planned one or they've had to have an emergency one for whatever reason, their surgeon, their OB will be like, what were you doing when you were pregnant? Because they can tell that the tissue of their lower belly where they made that incision was just so much nicer and they heal so much faster. It's because what we're doing, again, we're not just working our muscular system, we're really getting into our fascial system. And our fascia likes to be worked more gently. So it's kind of back to that whole less really can be more during pregnancy. Running, So for me, again, if I have a mom who she's a runner and she feels great running, I'm okay with that. I can support that as long as she doesn't have any pain. She's not dealing with any incontinent issues. She knows how to do some of the movements to release and relax her pelvic floor, and recognizes and realizes at some point she will have to stop running. I've yet to see a mom that really should be running up to her due date, because there comes a point that it's just, we have to think of like, it's like the short-term gains that we're so focused on sometimes, versus like, what is the potential downfall or damage that it could be doing to the pelvic floor that, hey, if we just took a break for a couple months, or for some women, all of pregnancy, it depends on what's going on. And then after we slowly, rebuild the strength in the body and slowly work back into running. So we can talk about, do we talk about running postpartum now or wait till we kind of get into postpartum?
Yeah, well, I think you can talk about, core weight training and running postpartum now that we've kind of talked about the before. So imagine a mom has had a vaginal birth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with a vaginal birth, and I will also just say with a C-section, it's very similar. Our C-section moms are just delayed, usually a couple weeks, right? You gotta allow that incision to heal. So postpartum, again, depending on how, say you had an easy vaginal birth, minimal to no tearing, you feel really good. It's really easy to be like, hey, I want to get right back on to doing what I was doing pre-baby. Like, I'll hear this like 2-3 weeks postpartum. A mom's like, I'm ready to go. She's ready to hit the gym hard, lift her weights, possibly even go running. Okay, you have to hold your horses, ladies. Do not be lifting heavy. Do not be running. Nothing intense on the body in those first handful of weeks. And I would actually argue that I like my moms, if I work with you in person, or if we have a conversation, one of my online programs, I'm like, you need to really wait at least 3 months and sometimes even 6. So here's why. We have all that relaxin in our body. Ladies, it stays for potentially a good 6 months in your body. That's one reason. So your ligaments are more lax. They might not feel it. You might actually feel tighter. I hear from a lot of pregnant and postpartum moms, they actually feel tighter. That to me is our body's way of like holding on for dear life in our joints. We just had that spreading of the pelvis. Everything's trying to come back. We don't have that stability yet. We don't have the balance yet through our pelvis, through our pelvic floor, through our core. Our posture is still in that more pregnancy posture. And then we think, oh, we're just going to go right back to our heavy weightlifting and running, CrossFit, whatever it might be. You really, really need to wait, because I've had way too many conversations with moms that did just that and overdid it. And then we start dealing with severe pelvic floor issues, severe back pain, pelvic organ prolapse, and so on. And those things in my world are preventable. So what I always say is we need to start slow. We work on slowly reconnecting our breath with our pelvic floor and our deep core. We get to enjoy doing some movements we couldn't do before, just some really basic, like lengthening through our body, laying on our stomach, laying flat on our back, like just getting some more space, starting to reconnect with that core. And I look at it in those first handful of weeks as more rehabilitative movement, right? And that's if we think of it that way. Okay, we're starting to reconnect our breath with our pelvic floor. We're strengthening our core in a really safe manner. And then we slowly need to build ourselves back up once we've been doing that work, but then also once we, have approval from our physician. Now, I am not someone that says you should do nothing for those 6 weeks, because I think doing nothing, you lose so much strength, right? But it's all about being smart about what we're doing. And so again, if you're someone who's like, oh gosh, I just need to like do some bicep curls or a little shoulder work or something that's really not affecting the pelvis so much, fine, but don't do it heavy. Do you know what I mean? It just needs to be gentle. We need to look at movement, well, in my opinion, all the time, but especially during pregnancy and postpartum, as nourishing for our body. What is the movement that we're doing and how is it actually nourishing us, just like we eat food, right? We eat food to nourish our body. If we're breastfeeding, right, we're really cognizant of what we're eating, and especially during pregnancy, right? So it should be the same way with our movement. And when we can do that, time and time again, I will hear from moms, especially ones that overdid it, say with a previous pregnancy, and then they're like, okay, I've got so much going on, maybe some diastasis recti, things like that too. And they know they need to really do it a different way. And then once they actually work through going slower, being more aligned with like the healing that is taking place in their body, and then we eventually get them back to running and lifting, they will feel so much stronger. I've had moms that are like, I'm running faster after multiple babies than I was before. But it's because she didn't hit the ground running right away. We built a really strong foundation, not only postpartum, but it honestly started with the deep core work during pregnancy. And I see that often because of so many women we've worked with during pregnancy. They learn this deep core work. And because they have feedback of baby, it is really the best time to try to learn this if you can. If you're done having babies, it's never too late, because we've taught so many women how to strengthen their deep core correctly afterwards. But it's really fascinating when we see moms who've had a chance to learn how to more effectively strengthen their deep core, get into their fascial system, then postpartum, all of that muscle fascial memory is there, and it doesn't really leave you, especially if you get right back in, within a couple weeks postpartum, and really doing this, the gentle, nourishing movement, and slowly build yourself up. I know it's more of a mental game for moms of like, mentally we think we have to be running, or if it's not hard, we're not sweating, it's not beneficial. And that is so far from the truth, because I don't know about you guys, but I was a very sleep deprived mom with all of my babies. Try to layer on hard lifting and running on top of that. It might give you a little like that, little adrenaline, like it makes you feel better temporarily. But ultimately, if you were to look deeper at labs, I wouldn't be surprised that it's actually affecting your cortisol levels and things like that. It's actually can be a stressor. So we have to look at the balance of, if we're really tired and depleted, and then we want to work out hard, even if it temporarily seems to feel good, but you then feel really tired later, it's likely too much. So that's also a piece of the picture that we don't talk about enough.
Yeah, I feel like you're touching on this like mental, emotional need to maybe get control of something in that postpartum time. Like, being rational and patient is not really happening very much.
Right.
Especially for my population, because it's all about getting back. And that is the thing about women generally. But then when you have a population of aerialists, some in my interviews have pulled off being patient and rational, but that is not the general, because they want to get in there and see if they can still do the things they could do before. But the things that we are doing are so involved with the pelvis. Like we're doing straddle ups. I don't know if you know what that is, but we're holding onto our apparatus, either a silk or a rope or a hoop, and we're just using everything we've just talked about to curl the pelvis up, wide legs, just all the way up to, pelvis, super high. And this is the movement that is the most important movement that we have in our sport.
And can I speak to that?
Yes, please.
We in Pilates, we do like feet in the straps and like leg circles and stuff like that. And so that, to me, it's kind of that similar. We're opening. So that is actually one of the movements that I really caution my pregnant moms on staying in a controlled range, because if we pull too wide, we can pull, because of the relaxin, we can pull at the pubic symphysis, and it could really leave her in a lot of pain if she overstretches and isn't supported enough. And then same postpartum, right? Because we still have that relaxin, you have to be really cautious. Like I don't let my postpartum moms start even doing leg circles, even in a controlled motion, for a couple months, because one, for me, I'm like, there's so many other things we can do that's creating better stability. And that just opens up for potential injury. And actually, after my first, because I didn't know that, no one taught me that. And so this is the stuff I love teaching instructors. But I think I was 2 or 3 weeks postpartum and I did feet in the straps because no one said, oh, don't do that. It left me in the hurt box. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So take it from me personally. Don't like, you just have to be really, really careful. Now, I say all of this, and there will always be that outlier mom that's like, oh, I was able to do all of that during pregnancy and postpartum. And like, that's great. But because in the professional world that I'm in, and I know potentially what could go wrong with those situations. I'm like, we're going to err on the side of like, let's actually let our body heal a little bit more. I'm not saying we can't move. There's so much movement we can do that really can help us to be stronger and more stable and helping prepare us into those movements. We just have to be cautious because you've got those hormones that are in there that in your body still that there's no amount of like rushing them out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure you have thoughts and feelings on this whole, like, you go to the OBGYN once or twice after the baby, and then 6 weeks, they're like, you're good. And then a regular woman's like, I'm good,
Yeah.
And it's so, us fitness professionals, we know that progressive is the word, right?
Yeah.
We're progressing it step by step. And the doctor, it's like a green. It's like a red light, green light, which is frustrating to kind of get into the consciousness of women that that's not actually what it should be. I'm sure that this is your entire career.
Yes. Oh my God, how many times have I had this conversation, right?
Yeah.
The OB says you're good to go, which is great. It's great to get the green light from the doctor. It means there's nothing medically going on. That's awesome. But again, kind of what we've already hit on, like you've got the relaxin, you've got these, that hormone again, like 6 months, it could say. The other piece, and I haven't hit on this, is your uterus. So it takes usually 6 weeks-ish for your uterus to come all the way back down. And if you've had each baby, like third baby, it's going to take longer for your uterus to come and contract back down than a first, for example, right? And that's the other reason too, is if our uterus is still expanded and we're like, oh, we're going to just hit the ground running and go, it can leave you feeling really sore. It can, especially if like, that bleeding in those early postpartum weeks, we need to really use that as a guide too, to like not overdo it. Because I know that's really affected a lot of moms too. And all of a sudden they're bleeding so much and they end up having to go back into the doctor because of that, the clotting and all that kind of stuff that can happen if we overdo it. That doesn't get talked about like ever.
Okay, so one of the things that comes up in the conversations on this podcast is posture, anterior pelvic tilt, like your body's stuck in it almost. Yeah. Because obviously the baby is in the front, and then our pelvis tilts. And I personally always had a little bit of that tilt in the first place. So even me 4.5 years postpartum, I'm still always working on it. Do you have any guidance for getting that posture and that alignment back postpartum?
Yes. So it all falls in line with the deep core stuff that I've talked about. So I see a combination of the anterior tilt can be more from our lumbar spine. And a lot of women actually can be, not everybody, a lot of women can actually be a little bit more tucked underneath, like in the pelvis. And then we've got like this tucked pelvis and then arch in the low back, right? That happens. And you also have women, like you said, that have more of that anterior tilt and are really pulling forward. So what we need to do, let's do this seated since we're sitting right now. And I can kind of talk you ladies through it a little bit. And then you kind of do the same thing standing. But when we're sitting, right, if we just pay attention, like I always like rock from like your pubic bone to your tailbone. You can do this if you're pregnant too. Just kind of like find those bony points, right? You guys know pubic bone, tailbone, sits bone, right? All of that area in there is your pelvic floor musculature and all the fascia. So what we want to do is we want to find right in the middle. So if you're really forward on that towards the pubic bone, you tend to be more anterior. If you're feeling like you're sitting on your tailbone, you're more of that posterior tucked position. So we want to try to work our pelvis a little bit more into neutral to anterior. I actually find most women will find their deep core pelvic floor to function better if they're slightly anterior. So versus like men do better a little bit more neutral. Women, we do a little bit better just finding a little bit of the anterior tilt. Now, if someone's really tucked, don't try to go out of that tucked position too fast. Anytime we're making postural adjustments in our body, they have to be small. We have to be aware of where we're going. If we try to like go from a tucked pelvis to like, oh, we want to sit up really tall and lengthen forward, our low back is going to grab on us and we won't even be able to find our deep core. As we start to bring our pelvis where we want it to, we want to think about that gentle pelvic floor lift, zipping up our lower belly and lifting that suspension of the organs that we kind of started this conversation with. We want to feel that lift inside of our body up through the top of our head. That's a really basic postural, like cueing to get you to be like right on top of those sits bones and having just maybe a little bit of an anterior tilt. Playing around with that pelvic tilt, seated or on the ground, is a really good exercise to help you to learn how to connect your breath with the pelvic floor deep core, because ultimately no amount of movement's really going to get your deep core to fire. It has to be initiated with your breath. So we think about our pelvis first, like where do we want our pelvis? And then a lot of moms are really rounded in the shoulders, right? So the next thing to focus on is we want to think about lifting from the mid back and our chest. We want to feel that lift up. That's why I talk about that lengthening, just going straight up. It'll start to kick on your mid back a lot more. And that's what we want. We want to think lower belly, mid back. And then if we're standing, we really want to think about our glutes and hamstrings working a little bit. Moms tend to be really tight in their hip flexors and dominant in their quads and have really weak hamstrings and glutes. That's what I see across the board. So doing some hamstring work to get those hamstrings to turn on. I love squats done in a way, pregnant, postpartum, but done in a way that's very like stable, not like super crazy weight, but just enough that we're creating this nice stability. So when we're standing, we want to have this awareness of where is our weight on our feet. We tend to hang out in our heels and our low back. We want to like shift our weight to our arches and our toes a little bit. So our heels are still down. We've got our weight shifted right over our arches and toes a little bit. That, and if you think about that lifting up through your body, your deep core will start to fire just naturally on its own without you having to be super cognizant of it. So at the end of the day, if you took nothing from that, but just thinking about like lifting up through your torso and shifting your body forward ever so slightly, it will really help you to stay out of your low back. We don't want to round forward. We don't want to really lean. It's like this tiniest little shift that starts to kick your core on when you're sitting or standing.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Carrie?
Yeah, it does. And then if you could touch a little bit on if ladies are peeing a little after the baby.
Yeah. So
incontinence.
So the biggest thing, with the incontinence is I find that when you learn how to get your core to fire more naturally and we work on like releasing more, we have to learn how to strengthen, but it's so many times I think when we're focusing on kind of activating our pelvic floor, we think it's going to feel like what our abs feel like. And that's actually not the case at all. When we start to really wake up our pelvic floor and that deeper core the way we should, it feels very gentle and very light, and it's stimulated with our breath. I always say like that gentle pelvic floor lift should start with our breath. So for example, like the squats we kind of talked about earlier, let's say you're going to do a squat. Well, gently connect up through your torso, feel that gentle, very gentle pelvic floor lift. So you're lightly connected, and then you go into whatever the movement is. Or if you're going to sneeze or you feel like a cough coming on, like try to feel that gentle lift so you're a little more supported, but you're gently supported. You're not like clenching, because if we clench and really squeeze, it can keep exacerbating the problem. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of time for that to get better. But awareness really is the first step. Awareness of just recognizing what's going on with their core and pelvic floor function helps a lot of moms already like decrease their incontinence issue that they have. And I would say if you're dealing with incontinence, like during your workout, when you're running, things like that, those are signs that that's too much for you right now. And I would do modifications and back off on that, work to heal your core, and then slowly work back into those more intense activities, because we should be able to do them without dealing with incontinence. And incontinence to me is like your body, like a bright red flag saying, hello, pay attention, something has to change. And if we don't change anything to work to get rid of the incontinence, then it can lead to prolapse and more pain and dysfunction as women get older. And it's not fun at all, because I've worked with older women, and it's like we can really prevent a lot of this, or we can reverse it, things like that. And I would always say too, like, I'm always for like go work with a pelvic floor physical therapist that specializes, that could help you speed it up a little bit, so you get that internal feedback. And that's what I would say is, if you're going to work with a pelvic floor PT, work with someone who does internal work, so that you get some feedback, like what's going on. Maybe there is part of that tissue that is just so tight, you need a little bit of that manual stimulation to really help to release that. Or maybe you do great just learning how to like start to connect your breath with your core, and you recognize that you were just like clenched down like crazy. That's very common. I see that all the time in our very athletic moms. We just got to teach her how to like trust in her body, that she doesn't have to hang on for dear life with everything that she does.
Erica, you're brick and mortar. Where are you located in the world?
I'm in Ankeny, Iowa, so we're just north of Des Moines.
Oh my goodness. How lucky for that population to have you serving them. This is wonderful. And you're from there. Are you from there?
I'm from Iowa, yeah. Not directly here, but I grew up a little bit farther north on a farm. Most people would not peg me as a farm girl.
I mean, you could be from anywhere in the United States. I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I love this. Do you have any, as a mom yourself, do you have any advice for moms out there who are juggling all the kiddos and then having a business and then trying to be healthy, all the things?
All the things. Yes. Involve your kids as much as you can, because I think when we try to always find the time without the kids, that's when moms kind of set ourselves up for like, oh, well, there's never time without the kids, you know. And it might be great to like get a workout done without them, but the amount of times I have been sent pictures of our moms doing the programs and their kiddos right there with them, and it's their kiddos that'll be, you know, mommy, you haven't done Erica's workout today, or let's go, you know, see Erica. Or so it's so cute. Like, I just like, it melts my heart. I love that. And your kids get to see you. So just, that's my, I guess would be my biggest advice. Involve your kids as much as you can. Recognize, as much as so many of us are like, we want it to be this perfect certain way, recognize that that's not reality. And when we take a step back, breathe a little bit more, we're a little gentler with ourselves, focus on the things that we're doing as nourishing for our body, and really, you know, remind yourself that you're doing an amazing job, even when you feel like, but I haven't done this, this, and this. Like, our brain is always going to go to the things that we are not getting done. I just cannot emphasize enough. Like, as soon as those thoughts start to come up, you've got to like squash them and turn it around and be like, but look at all this amazingness that I have done today. Maybe that's just going to the park with your kiddos and you do a little bit of movement while you're there with them, or on your living room floor, you're doing some of the deep core work, like whatever it is. The more that we can be okay with where we're at and what we are doing, the calmer our nervous system will be, and the better we're going to feel. And then we get to be amazing role models for our kids, so that we can help set them up for that success too, because we're just so bombarded with so much stress on so many levels.
Erica, I love this. You guys, I'm going to put some links up for Knocked Up Fitness so you can check it out, because a lot of you guys listening are knocked up for sure right now, or gonna be again. So Erica, thank you so much for being here. What a gift. Lots of wisdom coming from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carrie, for having me.
Erica, thank you so much for your time. You are a busy woman, mom of 3, you know, digital business, brick and mortar business. You're doing it all. It's really inspirational. So thank you. My friends, if you would please honor me with a 5-star rating and a review, it means a lot. I barely do this to podcasts that I love, but please just click the thing on Apple Podcasts and leave me a sentence. It means so much. Also, I'm with Diligent Podcasts. We also have Greener Grass with my friend and colleague, Kelly McVeigh. It is so fun, light, and heartfelt. And if you just want to hear my voice, one more time a week, I'm there for you. All right, my friends, have an amazing week. Over and out. This is Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is the Expecting Areas.